They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there.
We don't need to go populist left or populist right. We don't need to embrace neo-Marxism or neo-fascism, these disastrous movements from the 20th century. Turns out the answer is pretty much our Bill of Rights, our story. Embrace freedom. That's the answer.
And if the LP has a purpose, it's not to put people to sleep. It's to wake them up.
We're here because we love liberty, and we're here because we hate injustice. We are here to save mankind. We are here to fight.
Join us, the Libertarian Party, in perhaps the most exciting, grandest endeavor in history, the restoration of American liberty.
Ideas spread, they can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Hello and welcome to episode 71 of Decentralized Revolution, a podcast from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus and Mises PAC. I'm Aaron Harris and I'm your host. Episode 71 is what we're doing today, and Dave Casey from the Libertarian Party of Delaware is my guest. And I recently came back from kind of a long hiatus, and we've got a few episodes kind of coming here in rapid succession. David Sanchez from the band Havoc is going to be on. Josiah Baker, one of our organizers from the Mises Caucus in Tennessee. Also Tim Moen, he's the former chairman of the Libertarian Party up in Canada. I thought I'd talk to him to see, is there anything going on in Canada these days? I don't know. So those episodes are coming in quick succession. I'm not exactly sure in what order yet, but just just watch this space. The next one will show up here in a couple of days, and you'll have it to listen to. While I was on hiatus, working with the Mises Caucus board, a lot of our time and energy has gone into getting prepared for the various state conventions, because that's where the delegates are picked for the national convention, which of course, as you've heard me say, and in our emails and everywhere, that's in Reno, Nevada in May over Memorial Day weekend. So at that convention, there's about 1,050, I think it's like 1,053 or something like that, delegate spots. And those delegates get to vote on things like who's going to be chair of the party, who's going to be on the rest of the Libertarian National Committee, things like platform changes and things like that. So we're trying to get at least half that many delegate spots to go to Mises Caucus members. Now, we're obviously shooting for 100 or 2 more 100 than that. But we also know there are a lot of people from other caucuses in the party and people who aren't really affiliated with the caucus who want to see the party function better, see it reformed just like we do. So there's going to be a sizable chunk of people who will probably vote for Angela for chair and with the caucus on a lot of other things. But of course, we really want to minimize the effect that the people who hate us can have at the convention. Use the term chicanery a lot. That's this procedural, flim-flam that is designed to, obscure the issue, delay things, and impede progress according to the rules, which is what's trying to be carried out, but people want to basically throw a wrench into the works. So the fewer delegates that contingent has, the fewer procedural options they'll have to delay and derail. So, even I'm not exactly sure all the different motions in Robert's rules, but, if we have 60, 67%, whatever, of delegates who are either Mises Caucus or somewhat friendly, then we'll probably be able to make progress fairly quickly on a lot of things. But if there's a few people, if that hater faction ends up with, 25 or 30% or 40%, then things could get slow and some things could be in jeopardy. Now, also, you have things like the Credentials Committee, the committee of the LNC, a subcommittee of the LNC, who will decide which, who will certify the delegations to vote as they show up. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen. We're trying to build up a lead in delegates where that really won't matter. And, because of all this, there's been some drama at the state party level in a few states. Last year's, New Hampshire saga is the most famous example, mostly because the LP chair and other unnamed shadowy figures, they colluded with people, a few people in the New Hampshire party. They got caught. The national chairman ended up resigning over it. But basically, they kind of wanted to hijack the party and say, hey, the people that have been elected and who are holding officer positions now, guess what? They're no longer officers. We've started a new party. That didn't fly. There's some similar stuff that's been happening in Massachusetts and Delaware, the LP affiliates there. And there's been some good news about Delaware, which Dave and I are going to talk about on this episode. But to get back to kind of the big picture, the real headline is we've got about a quarter of the states or more now having allotted their delegates, and we're basically exceeding our own projections of what we think we need to do to have a good national convention. So, we're not putting those numbers out there necessarily of our projections, but the states that have a lot of delegates, you can go through and look, and our counts of who is Mises caucus and who is friendly and things like that. We're doing really well on this first 25 or 30% of delegates being allotted. Now, I said all that to say this: it doesn't really matter how many delegates we have if they don't actually show up in Reno to vote. So if you are going to be a delegate or an alternate, make your plans to be in Reno. Whether or not, maybe your state hasn't had their convention and you haven't been officially chosen as a delegate yet, you still need to make your plans to be in Reno, and you need to not leave until the Monday after the convention. But there are people who want to go to Reno who are going to be delegates, but they might have a problem paying for a plane ticket or gas to get there, and then, paying for a hotel room on top of that. So, there are a lot of people in the Mises caucus who give a lot of time but don't have a lot of money for whatever reason. There are some people who don't get involved too much but, contribute money. And then there's a lot of us who are kind of in the middle. So we're working on a system to subsidize those hardworking people who need that a little extra help. Some of them will need a lot. Some of them maybe a couple $100. Some of our people have lost businesses because of the virus regime. Family limits what you can do. So no shame in needing a little help, and we're going to help as many people as we can to cover some of the lodging costs, especially. We've reserved a lot of rooms in Vegas already. So we're going to need people to support us in that. We've got most of it, I think, budgeted for, but we want to do more so we can have as many spots, hotel room spots in the actual, venue where the convention is taking place. So we don't have to, get Ubers and rent vans and stuff to get people across town from their motel to the convention floor. So if you can help at all, even if you've helped a little bit already, if you're coming to Reno or if you're not, please go to takehumanaction.com, click on the support tab. That's where you can make a monthly financial commitment to Mises PAC to help us cover, this block of hotel rooms and the other convention-related expenses. Now, for that, you're limited to, I think, $5,000 a year by the Federal Elections Commission to contribute to that sort of so-called traditional PAC. But we're also a super PAC. And so people who want to give more than that $5,000 a year limit, you can make a gift bigger than that to the super PAC. And most of the stuff we want to do for convention, we're allowed to spend out of that account. It's kind of complicated. Don't quote me on any of this, But if you want to make a big gift, if you're tired of what's been going on and you want to see Angela as chair, that's an option for you. So specific links to those pages will be on the show notes page at decentralizedrevolution.com/71. You can do that. So please, if you've been thinking about it, go do that now. If you want to set up a monthly contribution for the next 3 months or so, and then if you need to cancel later or downgrade later, that's fine. But please try to do that as soon as you can, because the better our bank balance looks, the more we'll be able to spend on not only the Reno logistics, but on our state conventions, tables, materials, getting speakers, pro Mises Caucus speakers to the state convention. So please do that if you can. And after you do that, come back and enjoy my talk here with Dave Casey. All right, Dave, it's great having you on the show. I met you for the first time in person. I think it was back in October at Michael Heiss's wedding. And we were under the tent because it was going to rain, and it did rain. And here's this guy. I said, he looks familiar. And you come up to me and said, hey, I love it when the internet comes to life. and so I thought that was great to meet you. And that is such a great experience, meeting people in the Mises Caucus and the rest of the party, frankly, that you've interacted with online. So and it's great to have you finally on the podcast, too.
Oh, man. Yeah, thank you for the invite. And that was really, really great, obviously, because we love Mike. And it was a great reason to celebrate. But yeah, all the avatars came 3-dimensional, and we could hug each other and shake hands and shoot the shit. That was really great, man. Yeah, good to meet you too, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah, speaking of Avatar, that hair, man, that's Avatar.
Oh yeah, the pompadour
quality hair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I envy that. We're about the same age, but right around 40, I started losing the ability to do things like that with my hair.
See, you got to work with what you got, though, because I've been going gray for almost since I was probably 30. So
yeah, I
still got a full head of hair, though. So I'll just
I'd trade with you
in the front.
I'd trade with you any day of the week. But let's get to know you a little bit. You're a pretty talented guy. You actually do the intro and outro music for Decentralized Revolution. You really helped me out when I got things started.
Yeah, that song slaps. Every time it gets me pumped up, and all the choices for clips that you put in, or just I get goosebumps when I listen to
that. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I really I still get that feeling too, even though I probably heard it 10 times as many times as everybody else.
That's how you know it's good, man.
Yeah. But you also do a lot of memes and videos and stuff like that. So just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for the Liberty Movement, and get into what you do in real life too.
Yeah, so I don't know how far back you want to go, but just going back to the inception of the Mises Caucus, like as a Ron Paul guy, and as a I played in bands my whole life, tried to make that happen in my early 20s, and probably I spent a good decade touring around working with other bands, and I guess I'm a creative. That's like playing music, like creating art, content creating now. But yeah, I got really excited when Mike hit me up and was talking about getting the band back together, the Ron Paul revolution, because there was some, dark period there, 2013 to 16 or whatever, however you look at it.
So you knew Mike and some other guys, probably Jeff Douglas, from 28 to 2012, right?
Actually, I didn't know Jeff, but Mike, I met him when I went to Occupy Philly in 2011. And I love this story because he's just, there's all these, I don't want to say commies, but maybe lefties out there, trying to get, justice from the big banks, which speaks to all of us, right? But there was Mike with his bullhorn with the Alex Jones sticker and the Ron Paul sticker, yelling about end the Fed and why this is important. And I hit him up and he's like, yeah, here's our tent over here. Come on in for tea and we'll talk about this, that, and the other thing. And so I've known him for about 10 years. He's one of a kind, dude.
Yeah, he is. And so when you heard he was starting the Mises Caucus, pick us up there.
Yeah. So and I'll be honest with you, in the beginning, I was like, yeah, if you're starting a Facebook group, dude, I want to be a part of that. But I was still, I think, years away from being totally blown away at what the caucus has become. But just to get a Facebook group where there would be like-minded people and we could share memes and continue the culture, at least I was excited about that. So yeah, some of the earlier like Mises Caucus banners and logos and things. This one here, that came from me. And then yeah, Josh Smith ran, so I started making memes for him, and he would hit me up, hey, can you make GIFs? And I'm like, no, but I'll try and figure it out. Can you help me make a video? I was like, no, but I can try and figure it out. And just, I wanted to participate. That Take Human Action tagline is pretty infectious, and like some really cool things can happen when you just put shit out there, you know? So yeah, it started with the memes and kind of escalated, and yeah, with that Take Human Action thing, man, it just kind of like transformed my life. Not to get like cheesy, but I started my business, and after that tagline, like just trying something, like putting yourself out there really can lead to some cool things. So yeah, starting a podcast, like getting out of my comfort zone and talking to other people and trying to participate, being less of a spectator and more of a participant in this game, you know what I mean, was important and exciting. So yeah.
What was there a meme or a video or something like that after you started doing that in the Mises Caucus era that kind of caught fire, that really made you happy that you were kind of figuring this out?
I can't say like a specific one, but I just do remember like, yeah, the appreciation that would come back from like the community, like, and I was like, oh man, like it's not just me or just Mike that wants this thing back. You know, the energy had kind of dissipated. So that was exciting. Like, oh wait, there's lots of people. And then the following year, there's lots of people. And oh, now it's a super PAC. And now, you know, like donations are through the roof. And, you know, fast forward, it'll be less than 5 years at Reno. Right. And that's just, I mean, I don't know what, you know, your time preference is like, but I would say that's just tremendous. Yeah. And yeah, so I'm just excited to be a part of it, man.
Yeah, it's really great. I wasn't in on the first wave. Had some. I was kind of out of the LP for a little while, and kind of was going to decide to kind of stay out until I heard about the Mises Caucus. And at first, I was like, I don't know. And then I kind of looked around, and then got to know some of you guys. And yeah, it is great. I was actually I was a libertarian way back, and I was a little bit checked out of politics during the Ron Paul era. I voted for him, and I wasn't involved. I knew of him, and I told people about him, but so it's nice to get back some of that energy that I had, you know, back in the mid to late 90s, and really up until a little bit up in the first decade of this century. So, and you're right, and it's been like less than 4 years since the New Orleans convention. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really amazed that we've come this far this fast. I like one thing that you do. I don't know if you've done one in the just here recently, but done some of those face swap videos. I know you did one with the Avengers themed one.
Yeah.
Did you know how talk about those a little bit? What kind of response you get, and where do the ideas come from?
That's a good point. Yeah, like when I first started making memes for the caucus, like I don't know, like I would usually gravitate towards things that were like so deeply embedded in popular culture so that we could literally exploit that IP for us. So like the Beatles, you know what I mean? Like most people like the Beatles. So I would make like Ron Paul Beatles memes, or like the Avengers movies make more money than any other movie. So people like Avengers movies, and I'll slap Ron Paul or Scott Horton's head on some Avengers stuff. Just kind of like, especially in the beginning, I just did it to kind of keep morale up. Like, yo, we're still here. Like, yo, check it out. We're coming, you know. And yeah, memes are powerful, man. I'm learning about that. I'm doing Michael Malice's The New Right now. And he goes into, you know, deep about meme culture and, you know, like what you can do with some memes and what that can translate to.
Well, that is kind of asymmetrical warfare. We don't have the big media. We don't have the financial resources of the elites and stuff like that. And actually, this kind of get us into a topic that I wanted to talk about, that, you know, we see, especially the last 3-4 years, I think the establishment has caught on to the fact that memes and other internet activity have a disproportionate effect. It's a force multiplier. It gets people motivated. It makes fun of the official narrative and the official, it subverts them while making fun of them. And I think that's, what we've seen with, they've started banning some of the more extreme personalities, some of whom I don't care for either. And some of whom I think are pretty valuable voices, but obviously I'm against kicking just about anybody out of the conversation. And so I think that they've kind of caught on, and technology, which in the beginning, like I remember in the late 90s when I first had access to the internet, like it was really decentralized. It was anarchic in the good sense of the word, not in the false sense of the word that people use it. And I think gradually over time, some of the ways of, the Ron Paul movement relied heavily on the internet. I think that kind of put some people on notice. And even as people like us have gotten better at using the internet, the establishment has gotten better at, and it's pretty clear they're committed to trying to clamp down, trying to stop this, take away our little slingshot here, to use the Dave versus Goliath metaphor. What do you think of all that? We're about the same age. What's your impressions of how the internet has evolved in relation to politics?
Well, I think it follows a similar path to any kind of like government. Like that inclination is going to go towards centralization, and our inclination is to go towards decentralization. Boom, decentralized revolution hashtag. So yeah, you're right. It's what starts out just like, dude, movements like Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street. It starts out like with this pure energy for a real cause with a real grievance, and it's to do a real thing, but almost immediately gets corrupted. You can say that probably about the Constitution too, right? Like it just doesn't take long for these things to get corrupted. So yeah, flash forward to today, man. Everything is like boutique, as long as people have Netflix and Facebook. Like that's a shame that Facebook is where people spend most of their time on the internet.
Yeah.
That's a real shame. Because there's so much stuff to do. You could, make your own content, be creative or whatever, but we rather just kind of do this. I don't know.
Well, that was I think it was around 04, 05. We started hearing stories about, Web 2.0 that the big companies and new companies had figured out how to, and it became known as social media, but it was, and I don't think many of us realized it at the time, but it was sort of a conscious open effort to centralize things. And instead of, message boards and, little tiny subcultures, like I remember one of the first things I got into on the internet was the Mystery Science Theater 3000 sort of community on message boards. And so people are off in these little niches. And I think social media was the concerted effort. And I wonder if, CIA, all the other alphabet boys, like if they had.
You don't have to wonder, bro. Not with this guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I'm guessing they were probably behind that. And looking back now, it was probably strategic, right?
Sure. I mean, I can tell you I have lots of theories and we can theorize all day, but for a fact, the CIA was working on a platform called LifeLog, leading up to, I think it ended on the same day that Facebook became publicly traded. Check me on that. But this is basically the same thing. I mean, just imagine if Facebook isn't a tool of the alphabet boys, they couldn't have invented something, more well suited for their exact needs. So this is where like, if you don't know, like, look, if you're a libertarian and you declare the government as the enemy of people, right? Then you better know your enemy. So that if you don't know for a fact that the CIA and the NSA and the FBI are well-versed and fully capable since your grandpappy was alive to infiltrate or start a full-on private business as a front for what they want to do, then you don't know your enemy well enough.
Right.
So, go back a little bit, check out some COINTELPRO. If you don't think the Libertarian Party has COINTELPRO in it with a platform that is specifically says I'm here to destroy this institution, you're crazy.
Explain that term for people who aren't conspiracy nuts like us.
COINTELPRO?
Yeah.
That was a FBI program that they started, I believe, during like the Black Panther times. Those guys were making some serious noise. And you have to infiltrate movements, and that's taken different shapes through the decades, but like it's even done on a private level now, like with companies like Blackwater have done it for Monsanto. They infiltrate like environmental groups or political groups that they might deem to be a threat in some way. So when you hear everybody going, "Oh, he's a Fed, he's a Fed, he's a Fed," it's not like, look, man, it's not Agent Smith like sitting at a at a desk, right? But there could be absolutely low-level people snooping around, watching who's making noise. Is this guy a threat? Is he not? And when I say a threat, I mean to like the hegemony of the state, not like you know what I mean. Yeah,
and I think that again, Facebook and other places was a good. I think I don't know if they foresaw it, but once the sort of anti-state activity, whether from the left or the right, kind of started, it continued to flourish from the old days onto Web 2.0. I think that they've kind of used that as a way to kind of see what's out there and track and decide who to infiltrate, or maybe they're not infiltrating some places, but they're just kind of watching because they do sweep up all the data. So I think that they've kind of used that to their advantage. And once I think that well runs dry for them, or they have another priority, that's when I think they come into, what you're seeing now is that, the White House openly talking about working with Zuckerberg and others to, to kind of do the Noam Chomsky, window of what we can talk about and things like that. So it's amazing that it goes from maybe the CIA investing early on. I think one of the government agencies, I'm pretty sure that they were in on the ground with Twitter and Facebook. So it goes from that sort of covert backside support of creating these institutions, and within a decade, it's the president and his spokesperson openly talking about stuff that, if you look at case law of the First Amendment, the Supreme Court, things like that would be called the chilling effect. That while it may not be strictly illegal for the president to say something like that, what it does is it's a threat, and that it will cause people to self-censor. And so I think that's exactly what's going on, and it's only going to get worse.
There's definitely a learned behavior aspect to it. Like censorship doesn't always come in the like somebody pointing at you saying you're not allowed to say these words, or book burning. Like as somebody who's been banned from Facebook 30 days at a time for like 8 months of the past year, I can tell you that the lesson is, or what I feel is, okay, I better watch what I say. I better pre-edit what my thought was, which is when you're talking long-term, man, like generationally, this is just how people will think. And Facebook, as you know, is not the public square. That's why they want us all inside, all talking here. So everything can be monitored. Everybody can, everything you say will be there forever. And you're not on the corner. You don't have the right to like protest here or speak it. First Amendment doesn't apply here. All that jazz. So yeah, they love it. They love Facebook, Twitter.
Right. And, that's something that self-editing, Michael Rechtenwald just talked about this. It's an idea from Foucault, who there's some problems with Foucault and his ilk, but I actually like the concept. I think he innovated it. I'm not sure. Maybe Solzhenitsyn kind of talked about some similar things of what Foucault calls governmentality, is that people do begin, like you said, to internalize things, and the government has basically taught people how to self-censor. And then now we've seen in the past 2 years that it's openly that people are, ganging up on people who divert from the COVID orthodoxy. So it's, to me, that's the most, Orwell, that's the most effective way of controlling people, is teaching them, conditioning them to behave the way you want to. Then you don't have to be arresting people and burning books and things like that.
Yeah, and you can feel that this is the precursor to social credit.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You can really feel that, and our government operates a whole lot more like China's government than we would like to think. I think, like at least in China, they'll tell you that Alibaba is connected to their government.
Right.
Oh no, we're not connected here with Amazon. No, we would never do that, or we would never, join forces with Microsoft. You know what I mean? Like Huawei,
Right.
like they do over there. They just say it, but I don't know. I don't buy that. I think that there's not a whole lot of separation between a company like Amazon, which guaranteed $600 million in contracts, CIA cloud space contracts. That's fascism, man, right? That's when the lines get blurred between the state and the governmental complex.
And I think the state, that a lot of these places, I remember seeing, again, way back, like in the late 90s, I think he was on an interview with Jeff Bezos on C-SPAN, and he seemed very libertarian. And I was like, oh, this is so great. And, and so somebody who I think probably had some very libertarian, very free market instincts builds this company. And at a certain point, if you're not, strictly committed to principle, to acting on principle, the government comes along and it's the carrot and the stick. We can give you contracts, we can help you out, or we have the capability to shut you down, to monitor all your stuff, to do whatever. And so unless you are Ron Paul or John Galt or somebody like that, you're not going to tell the government to go pound sand. You're going to try to go along at first. Like, remember Microsoft was, the antitrust thing, again, in the late 90s, Microsoft I think they had 0 lobbyists, right?
Yep. Never made a donation to anyone.
Right. And then that happened. And now we have Bill Gates, who is going to make us all, vegetarians with the thing in our thing, so.
You're going to love it. Your pod eating bugs. Yep.
So, and you did an episode of Dave versus Goliath, your podcast, on this a while ago. And again, I hate to, kind of stroll down memory lane, but, I think we are kind of on the older edge of people in the Mises caucus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's valuable to go back and tell people, and a lot of our younger members, they didn't grow up in the world we grew up in, but they still have this motivation to fight for freedom and this love of freedom. But the world you and I grew up in, pre 9/11, if someone had told America to lock down and not go get haircuts and not keep their restaurants open because of a really bad case of the flu, like regular Americans would have told the government to go F themselves, right? Like it would have, it would have been very widespread. I can remember back in the 90s where you could mouth off to a cop and not be worried about getting shot or roughed up. Maybe not everywhere, and maybe not every person could do that, but I did that, and now I think twice. So like, and I don't think 9/11 was an inside job. I think that was blowback. Maybe they knew a little bit about it. You can weigh in on that. But I really do see, and it even kind of got me. I was dealing with some mental illness at the time, and I kind of went neocon there for 3 or 4 years after 9/11. And so if it changed me, somebody who had become a libertarian because of, Walter Williams and Murray Rothbard in the early 90s, look what it did to society. So I think that's, I see signs of it all the time that what happened on 9/11, them taking advantage of that and leading to where we are now.
Bro, I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it, because I'm still, I'm 40 years old. I'm still not over it, because I am aware, I'm old enough to understand what the timeline could be if that weren't the case. And you'd be looking at, there wouldn't be the housing crash. There wouldn't be Donald Trump. There wouldn't be this global technocratic corporatist takeover. It's all goes back to that. And I'm sure even beyond that, but as a young man then who had an experience, and the American experience for me was a whole lot different before and after. And a lot of reflection, dude. My initial, and I come from the left, but my initial reaction when I just heard what happened was, all right, I'm 20 years old. It's my duty to go kick the ass of the guys who did this. So I think I was for a minute in danger of maybe going down that route, or I'm glad I didn't enlist for anything, but I found loose change shortly after that. That kind of changed everything for me. I'm not saying that everything in there is absolutely correct, but for some kids basically who put out that documentary a year or two after that event happened, there's a lot of gems in there, and a lot of good rabbit holes to go down. But yeah, aside from conspiracy or did they let it happen or whatever else, boy, did they take advantage of that collective trauma. And, it's not just, and all right, I'll go a little bit conspiratorial, but it's not just one plane that did it. I think that there was a reason that they used two planes, and that's the first one wasn't caught on camera. But as soon as the first plane hit, then you have every camera in the world pointed at the World Trade Center so that the whole world can experience the trauma of the next plane going in.
Yep.
And you're not going to shake that. So if you're a kid or whatever, like that's going to be in your memory forever. So yeah, the trauma, they definitely exploited that. But I tend to believe, man, when you look back at these kind of things, like again, it's just the nature of government. Like you can believe that the government is always reacting to bad stuff that happens. Oh, we had an idea that no one could envision planes going into towers. So here's our plan for what we're going to do, though.
Yeah.
We got this Patriot Act. We think this will help.
Right.
We're going to do these things.
We have this phone book sized bill ready to go.
Ready to rock. Yep. Same with the housing stuff. Hey, all we need to do is print, whatever it was at that point, $2 trillion, and that'll fix it. And flash forward. Yeah. Now the COVID stuff. I was 20 when 9/11 happened. I was 40 when the COVID lockdown happened, and all these similarities were happening. Just trust. Everything is crazy right now, so you have to just listen to us right now. We have to do this stuff right now, and that's always a bad move. And it just seems like the playbook is kind of similar, but definitely the culture, like the narc culture, has expanded because of the security state, the police state that's happened since 9/11. So, countries like China or the United States could never enforce what they want to enforce without your neighbors being in on it. Right. That's see something, say something. That had to be curated over a generation so that now the other isn't the Muslim terrorist, bro. It's your Republican neighbor or your Democrat neighbor who might be Antifa, or they might be an extremist, whatever. Everybody, if you can't trust your neighbor, the fabric of society is fucked.
Yep. And I think that
know that.
Well, and I think that the Occupy movement and the Tea Party stuff, I think that that's when they saw, Dave Smith talks about this, so it's, it's not my original idea. Other people have talked about it, that people started seeing, the Ron Paul types and the Dennis Kucinich and Ralph Nader types talking about the same issues. Dennis Kucinich, wants the Fed to be more inflationary and more controlled by the people, but he knows it's evil. He just has a bad solution for it. But So everybody was kind of starting to look at the right things, and they were and if you and I are enemies or we don't know each other, but then we find we have a common enemy, well, we're going to be friends to some extent. And so that's when I think that you really saw the online, data collecting, I think, was going on and ramped up even more at that time. And that's when you saw the CRT social justice stuff coming back with this emphasis on, race essentialism, identity that is, you don't really have an identity. It's been the thing that's imposed on you by society. But at the same time, if you're this race, you can only think this way. Like, it's this weird jumble of things that is intentionally distracting and contradictory. So I think all that, like, there's graphs of like certain terms, being mentioned in the New York Times, like, for example, I don't know, social justice or whatever, it's, a couple times a year until like 2012, and then it's 100 times a year. So dividing people consciously, I think, for the last decade has gotten us to this point where, you're afraid in mixed company, to say, to make a joke about COVID or say your opinion, because, I don't want to piss off my wife's coworkers or something like that, but they've created this environment where we're self-censoring, but then when stuff does get talked about, we immediately write people off and shut people down and all that. So I think it's very effective, that governmentality, along with what you called the snitch culture. That's powerful. That's really powerful.
They couldn't do it without us turning on each other. It just wouldn't be possible. Even with all the social media, all the 4K cameras in the world, satellite, they wouldn't be able to do it if we weren't, at such odds. Yeah.
And I think, public school has had a huge influence on that, just the structure of public school and, the fact that, there are right answers, and the man at the front of the room is going to tell you those right answers.
Right.
And in order to succeed at this, you have to spit back the right answers to him. I remember all the time, coming, I was awesome at history and English, but I had to work at like math and stuff. And I would get a math problem right, but I would use the wrong method and it would be wrong. So what does that do to people when they're adults and they hear from the trusted sources that, this medication doesn't work and you shouldn't listen to these people about where the thing came from? It's all, generation upon generation of that over the last 100 years. That's been their biggest tool in this. And that's why I think that, Corey DeAngelis, who we had on the podcast a while ago, and other, I've got my problems with school choice, but the fact that school choice, the impulse for that is going up, and homeschooling, that's a little breath of fresh air in all this, because it allows people to form their personalities and identities outside the sphere of the government. So
yeah, I think there's an unfortunate rubber band effect that happens when the loss of liberty happens, like libertarianism will become more popular.
Yeah.
That's sad, because you were reading these books and studying this in the 90s when things were going pretty great. Yep. Harry Brown, I'm pretty sure the Libertarian Party hasn't gotten to Harry Brown levels since the kickoff of the War on Terror. So like the appetite for the freedom philosophy has dissipated.
Right.
So yeah, we got work to do, man.
Well, to be fair, the two Gary Johnson runs, they did get, I think, a bigger percentage of the vote. And I'm
sorry, membership. I should have said.
I was going to get into that, the difference between that, because I can tell the response of the haters who might be listening is that I actually liked Gary Johnson with some qualifications. Of course, I hated Bill Weld. I think they missed, Gary missed a lot of opportunities, but most of the time, until the bake the cake thing, he was pretty good. Like, he was calling for like a 43% decrease in the defense budget, along with, across the board, including defense. So, but you're right, those waves kind of happened on election day, mainly because the alternatives were so bad in 2012. And so people had, he made enough sense and was respectable enough to get, I think he got 4 million votes the second time. But you're right, and not to diminish any of that, but it was once that tide went out of the election, very few people were left, whereas, the Harry Brown tide was smaller, and then the Ron Paul tide, after those men did what they did, they left people in their wake doing all kinds of different things for liberty. And that's what we're trying to do with the Mises Caucus, is build something that's not tied to a specific federal election, something that's going to be functional, decentralized, taking advantage of opportunities on the ground where people are. Because, people like you and me who have this desire for liberty, we need to find other people, and we need to find projects to work on, and getting our butts kicked in a presidential election every 4 years is not enough to keep people like us motivated and other libertarians motivated. So that's what we're trying to build here. So
yeah, man. I think there's look, I voted for Gary Johnson twice, and then I voted for Joe Jorgensen, and I get called a Republican infiltrator by haters all the time. But I think, just to go back to like my earlier sentiment on being a participant in life versus a spectator, like I just assumed, again, before Mike called and said, hey man, I'm going to do this thing within the Libertarian Party because the chair is awful and they're doing all these awful things. I was like, no, wait, they're libertarians. It's the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
They have to be doing the best they can, and they have to be moral people of great character, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was just assuming. They were doing the best they could, but that was because I was so hands off.
Yeah.
So you can only expect so much, man. Like Gary Johnson, yeah, he seems like a good guy. I would want to smoke a joint with him. He's probably good on
wait. Gary
stuff.
Johnson smokes weed. What are you telling me here?
He's the weed man. Yeah, he's the weed CEO, I think. But just to like, I guess now, if I'm going to participate, if I'm going to like work for this, if we are going to do this work, I need a different kind of message. So when you hear Mises Caucus guys go, I want to hear some bold messaging. Like, there is a world of difference between when Joe Jorgensen says, I find the government's just too darn bossy, and when Shane Hazel goes, the murder cult is a death machine that needs to be stopped in its track. They're both true, right? But the one really gives you the sense of urgency. So I need that. So if I'm going to play the game, I can't just go, sure, man, I'll vote for whoever you give me every 4 years.
Right.
No problem. You guys can have your jobs program, and I'll just vote for whoever you put up. No, I'm going to play the game.
Yeah, I really get tired of, and I'm just really, I'm just blown away by the perception that Mises Caucus is, Republican light, or, gateway to the right or whatever. Like, I was the Central Committee chair of the LP in Ohio. I sued John Kasich, the Republican governor, and other Republican officials over some ballot access chicanery. My name and two other people in the party was on, I went to federal court against these guys. I hate these guys.
God bless you.
I hate Republicans. I hate them more than I hate Democrats, because from most of them, 98% of them, because their rhetoric, panders to people like us, or people who are kind of leaning libertarian,
right,
but they should know better. They should know better. But so that's why I hate them. I will never vote for another Republican again as long as I live, unless somebody, the character and caliber of Ron Paul comes along. But hopefully we'll have built a Libertarian Party that someone like that will run with that L next to their name. I don't want to have to, I want to build something where we don't have to think, well, maybe this Republican this year is our best option. I don't want that. And so I think that, get that sort of transitions into something I wanted to talk to you about that's very recent, is, kind of how elements in the LP that, and I'm not even going to speculate on their motives, but I don't think they're doing their best. And I don't think maybe it's just they can't conceive of a better way to do things. But the people who have been running it at the national and most of the state levels, they are just kind of clueless. And a lot of them are good-hearted, but since we've been coming on the scene, we've gotten all kinds of attacks that are absolutely baseless. The, racist, sexist, homophobe, this and that. There's no basis to that. And that criticism has also taken the form of some pretty underhanded procedural stuff at the state level. When our people are coming in, being a part of the party, people, for whatever reason, have not responded well. Some people, I know in a lot of states, I've heard in Ohio, a lot of the moderate type libertarians, I say that more as temperamental rather than ideological, and in other states, they're welcoming the Mises Caucus because they see what we are. They judge us based on our actual actions and not a narrative. But in Delaware, you ran up against some of that sort of hysterical, extreme reaction. So let's talk about that for people who, I know a lot of people are aware of the broad sketch of it, and we can get into as much or as little detail as you want. But
Sure.
Your story is the Delaware story is, to me, is hilarious if it wasn't so sad.
Wild,
and,
right?
and some of the characters, like the one main antagonist, is quite a piece of work. So why don't you catch us up on that and bring us up to what just recently happened?
So yeah, I want to start off by saying, yeah, I think our guy is one of the worst guys. Like there's lots of bad guys, but I think he might be like the worst one because he is formidable. Like he's a really smart guy. Okay. He's not like one of these guys at LPPA just kind of slobbering on it. Oh my God, and cocks and dicks and whatever. He's really smart, and he's been in this party for a long time. He thrives in bureaucracy and Robert's rules. He knows it, and he has been here for, like I said, a decade. He helped write a lot of those bylaws. So Mike has talked about this. Like the Mises Caucus are good actors by and large, right? I'm not saying there's not a shithead in the caucus anywhere, but like we openly declare our goals. Here's what we want to do. We are here. We're going to try and out recruit you, out fundraise, and play the game, and we're going to win elections that way. Yep. Whereas they don't operate like that. It's like they see a threat, so you stoop to subterfuge and you operate, if not illegal, definitely shady, unethical, happy to do it because whatever you perceive as that threat is so bad. And I think another one of the microcosms I've noticed in this party in my short term here is that there's usually a bad actor or a couple that know exactly what they're doing. They know they're not white nationalists and Nazis and all these things. They absolutely know that, but they're happy to perpetuate it to the useful idiots that will follow them and help them perpetuate those rumors or whatever. So yeah, I noticed that when the snakes in our party, like when anybody new would come in, they would try and grip them up real quick, slap them on a committee so that you can make them feel good and right. And then it's our team versus their team.
Well, nothing wrong with that, getting them involved. But if you do that as a means to poison them against other,
right? Don't tell somebody that never met me that I'm a white supremacist Republican. Please don't do that.
unless you're openly, like don't insinuate something that you can't back up. Like if you actually are those things, then yes, I would want to. If somebody tries to get in the Mises Caucus, who is like that, as a board member, I will do what I can to get rid of that person, to ostracize them or to try to.
I bet you if he sees that you say that he will call off all the dogs and he will end this immediately and everything will be hunky dory after that.
Yeah. But you're right. And I think and tell me if you agree with this, that I see a lot of it as people, and again, I hate to do this and maybe I'm wrong, but I think in some cases I'm right, is that people who they're a big fish in a small pond. It's small stakes, but they have a big influence. They have a title. Mm-hmm. They have some authority. They get their name in the paper occasionally. They can hold the gavel. And so they're kind of LARPing at politics. And they see that threatened and know that they will have to do some work and have to do some things a little differently. Then they'll fight like hell to protect their little hobby, which I think is what it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, he's like publicly stated that like they'll use the takeover, like the slogan of the campaign, the takeover trademark, right? He'll say that, he'll put it out in a press release like they have openly declared a hostile takeover. You know what I mean? It's like when you tell a person online to, S your D or something like that. It's like, they proposed me with a sexual advance. It's like, no, asshole, you're a snake. You're using this to twist language and to paint people in an awful way. But yeah, look, man, I came in a little hot. I before I was even in the party, I was like, yo, who's running these social media pages? I haven't seen anything for a week. Blah, 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 blah. Can we get something out of here? I'm happy to help. Wouldn't get any answer. So I did come in kind of guns a-blazing. So I'm sure that he and a couple other ones didn't like me like from the get-go. But I did, like I say, I offered my help and just like, hey man, but he wasn't interested in making anybody an admin on social media stuff. Even when we elected a new chair, like he never gave the chair, access to that. He was like, he had appointed himself like kind of the arbiter of who could speak through these channels. So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Let's get into the actually kind of what happened when. So you and some other Mises Caucus people are getting involved and wanting to be a part of the Delaware Party, and then at some point there's an election, and is that what precipitated the chicanery, I guess?
Yeah, I guess like we had our election in June. We had our convention in June. I was elected. Dr. Amy Lepore was elected vice chair of the state party. I was elected chair of Newcastle County, and Bill Hines was elected chair. One of his grievances is that since, like Bill had become the chair, he was voted unanimously. I'm pretty sure he might have got a couple no's, but nobody even ran against him because he was so well liked by everybody on all sides. But he had also like joined the caucus, and he didn't declare that. And that was one of the things that he brought up later. Oh, he didn't declare his affiliation, and if had we known, then we never would have voted for him, and all this stuff. And he said, hey, Amy promised she would not be a coordinator for the caucus anymore, which I don't think she ever did that. And it's not like she would have to do that either. You can have that role and you can be a coordinator. Like, this is all ridiculous. Like, he's treating it like it's a hostile takeover, and that what he's doing is like, this is the Bush doctrine. We have to do it before they do it to us. You know what I mean? We have to literally kick these people out of the party without trial, without justification, without letting them answer. I don't know. It's crazy, man. And like, I can be an asshole online. I would go after him, whatever. If they wanted to take that Karen Ann route and make it about decorum, they might have been able to try that with me, but not with Bill, not with Amy. You know what I mean? So they made a fatal flaw right off the bat. But yeah, that was October 1st. They tried to pull that coup. They wrote a thing that they had like a meeting within 5 minutes and expelled people. And
so basically the people who were any of the people who held that meeting, were any of them current officers?
Yes. So we had a 10-person board. There was a guy, a good libertarian. I feel bad. He's the secretary of the party, and he was just under so much stress. He's just like a sweet guy, and he hated to see the kind of factional fighting. He had friends on both sides. So we had a meeting, and the first minute of the meeting, he quit. And then the very next day, they were like, great, that's our majority. We don't need to. Will, his mom, and like 2 other people had a meeting. They're like, that's good. That's our majority, and we'll just rush this through. And
it was literally the guy's mom, right?
Literally his mother, who is also the she has the bank account. Yeah, and
didn't his father kind of criticize him and come out again? Is that true?
So listen, this is actually the coolest white pill about this whole story and how it finishes up. His dad is actually a really good libertarian.
Right.
And he's such a this was like public. He's on Twitter and calling out his son. He said, man, he's had so many good tweets in the past couple of months, but one that comes to my head is when Libertarian Party members think of like the disgrace of this party, they will no longer think of James Weeks. They will think of my son. And I was just like, he's absolutely right. And there's a part of me that views that as tragic. Like, I really dislike Will. I really dislike him. I don't hate him. I save my hate for, like the likes of Henry Kissinger and Hillary Clinton and shit like that. But he's really pissed me off. But I wouldn't wish this on anybody's family. Right. Like, it's literally disrupted his household. Yep. And that sucks. I don't like that. But his dad he was just we unanimously elected him as the secretary of the Libertarian Party of Delaware proper. So this is not anti-McVeigh action. It's just Will McVeigh.
So one thing before we get back into the narrative of what happened, he also runs another officially recognized political party. Is that correct?
So yeah, this speaks to the nature of this guy. Dude, he's a provocateur, much like Vermin Supreme. And they bro down. Vermin Supreme is Team Will, Team Coup. But they like to kind of just be disruptors. They're like more trolls. I wouldn't be surprised if Will started the Mandalorian Party of Delaware. He started the Bacon Party of Delaware. He is the reason that we can't run cross party candidates. That used to be a thing in Delaware, but they just hated him so badly for like screwing with it and trolling, and so that got thrown off. But
so it was like New York, where a candidate could run on two different party lines. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and I think yes, and we would have maybe a couple years back, like if there was a great Liberty Democrat in the blue state of Delaware, like we could have maybe gotten on board with them or something like that.
Right.
And
so he actually made Mandalorian Party, Bacon Party into actual. He filed the paperwork.
Yeah.
He paid the fees if there are any.
He just started a Mises Party. So when you go to the DMV, you could do that, because I imagine he's going to make websites that have whatever Nazi regalia on there or something to make it look awful. But that's what these guys do. They just kind of want to burn it down. Like, if I can't have it, I'll burn it. That's the spirit from those types.
So a few people had a meeting. Did they have a pretext for basically saying, did they point to something as their legal justification for? So they just basically declared all the newly elected people, that organization is no longer, and we're the party, and here's our. They did a Gilletta Jarvis basically.
It was a little different. At first, he expelled, or he said he expelled me, Bill, and Amy, and then I think a week or two later, might have been a month, I don't know, it's blending together. But then they had a meeting that they were like, okay, we're absolving the whole Libertarian Party of Delaware. So if any of the 2,100 plus libertarians that are registered in the state who could have come to convention, they can't anymore. This is our club, and you can come to us and tell us if you want to be a member, and we'll tell you if you can. And they had a nice little questionnaire they were thinking about, like, oh, any caucus affiliation that you want to tell us about? Like, dude, straight up tyrants. You know what I mean? And again, just to talk about that little club, it was a little, out of all the little clubs, this is like the littlest one. Before the Mises Caucus got involved in Delaware, man, it probably 10 or 15 people statewide. They would come, Will would come up, from Kent County to Newcastle County so that they could have like a couple people at these things. And I get it, man. They used to hang out together, play D&D, have sleepovers, get drunk. This was their thing that they did for all this time. And then here comes me and Amy and Carter, all these guys who were just like, we're ready to work, and we have some ideas that aren't yours. But I would have worked with him. Newcastle's not Kent County. You can have your county, dude. You guys, let's have competitions. Right. Let's try and grow this together. But yeah, he definitely wasn't interested in that.
So your response to the, did the state ever get involved? I know in Ohio, it's a nightmare. When you need something, at least up until 5 years ago, when you need something from the state, or an answer or something like that, you don't get it. But if you do something wrong, they're all over you. So what exactly happened, and how did you guys fight against that? Was the state involved? Was the LNC involved? All that?
Yeah, we haven't had any the state of Delaware hasn't been involved. We've made some inquiries, like the Department of Elections and things like that. And Will's been all over the place. He'll go to Wikipedia and change it to he's the chair. He'll go wherever you can find information, lp.org, and you know what? Shout out to the LP, who still has his convention as the Delaware convention. Those guys are a real piece of work. They need to get up there and edit that. But yeah, got some fakertarians on that LNC, as I'm sure you're well aware. So they're on.
So what exactly? So there was a plan. Where did it come from to have these competing conventions? Talk about that. Yeah.
So that was the idea at the LNC. All we wanted from the LNC was for them to recognize the duly elected chair. And they spin it in like this language where like, well, we can't decide the chair. That's beyond our scope of power. It's like, no, we're not asking you to pick one. We're asking you to just confirm. Right. It's two different things. But again, this is all politics. Nobody up there is impartial. Well, that's not true. There are people who are, but not enough, unfortunately. So This like everything else, man, is like a my team versus your team rather than what's the right thing here. Up until the Judicial Committee, those guys really impressed me. I was shocked. I just was so used to like being treated like, being treated like shit, like not important. We're trying really hard to come in here and make this something formidable.
Yep.
And you'd think that LNC would want that. And just backs up all my old theories about not wanting the party to grow and whatever. But the JC came through, and
the Judicial Committee of the LNC.
Yes.
And what did they do exactly?
So Will had a grievance, and he filed that with them, and then we did too, based on the couple meetings that the LNC had, like 4 or 5 hour meetings. And I could get that out. But from what I could tell, other than Vermin Supreme, everybody was on the side on our side. They were not. They said any decisions that the LNC has made are basically null and void. So I think we're waiting for the LNC to either accept that or challenge that. I think that's Monday. And I have to imagine that they will. That we'll just play this game until Reno.
Right. So basically, they said the meeting with the guy and his mom and the 1 or 2 other people is illegitimate. The election that took place according to the bylaws, where Bill and Amy and you were elected, that still stands.
Yeah,
you guys are the party. Okay, so that competing convention thing, is that still going to happen, or
so that's where we're still doing it, and he's still having a convention. So there are dueling conventions. I don't think that it's like so Hunger Games now, where it's like whoever brings the attendance, that gets to keep the party. I'm pretty sure it's our party. You know what I mean? Okay. So, but Will's never going to hand over the bank account. He's never going to hand over the keys to the Facebook page and stuff like that. So yeah, that will probably somewhere down the line end up in litigation somewhere. I don't know, but I'm not looking forward to that. It's just all this stuff is just such a waste of time when we could be doing like important stuff. But other than that, man, yeah, we're going to send delegates to Reno. He's probably going to do the same thing, and they'll probably not let either of us vote.
Let's talk about that. Like, that's one thing I've been kind of warning against is, we need to look at the credentials committee and that process, because, New Hampshire, other places, they may try to just bog, because at this point, that's all they have is procedural stuff and other dirty tricks, unless they can somehow organize and win delegates at the 70% of the remaining conventions, but they don't have the strength, or I think the initiative to do that. So I think they are going to try to muddy the waters, disqualify people, delay things, try to get an online option, try to postpone the convention, so when delegations show up, if I'm understanding this correct, there is a committee that are the credentials committee who will certify, yes, Bill is the chair of the New Hampshire party. This list that he gave us of the delegates is their delegates. But if that doesn't pass that committee, then they're not able to vote. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. And so you think that the other party is going to show up and try to get themselves recognized, or at least the rightful party disqualified. So you said you think it's actually going to happen, that neither delegation is going to be able to vote?
Definitely a possibility. That's what I see them talking about when I see little just chatter, like, people recommending that we wouldn't let either of the parties vote until the end. And then, whatever the new LNC says, might be the way moving forward.
So that you think the LNC might punt on it, even though the JC has recommended this, they could choose to just ignore it?
I mean, I think so. I don't think that this LNC wants our Libertarian Party of Delaware to succeed, or the rightful party of New Hampshire, or the rightful party in Massachusetts. So they've accepted this plan where they will stoop to the lowest levels to make sure that doesn't happen and prevent people from doing it procedurally or otherwise. And I don't see that stopping until post Reno.
Yeah. All right, let's talk. I've taken a little more of your time than I planned on, but I want to give you a chance to talk about. I didn't know this when I first became aware of you, and I admire small business people with because that's a skill set that I just don't have to take that risk, to do that, to be creative. Like I kind of have half of that. I'm a freelancer in the editing business. And so it takes a little bit of initiative to do that, to not have a a set paycheck, but to go full on and to do what you're doing. I really admire it. So tell people what you do and where you got the idea and what's going on with your business.
For my local business?
Yeah, the cafe, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You?
So yeah, that's me. So Wheelies, yeah, this is again, man, this is post after I started the Mises Caucus, 2017. I started this. So I started pedaling. I live on a river town, and I got like a coffee bike and started doing just cups of organic coffee, like pour over coffees for people. And the town is kind of depressed, so the business really wasn't there. So I kind of doubled down. There's a historical farm stand about a mile down the road, and it was up for rent. And typically they would just sell like produce, things like that. But my idea was to kind of portion off a part of the building to make a commercial kitchen, and they let me do that. So yeah, we started Wheelies Farm Stand Cafe. I got the bike parked in there, but we do like, I guess the specialty is like waffles, chicken and waffles. I got savory ones and sweet ones, and really small menu, lots of like bacon and breakfast stuff. I'm
actually going to Google Maps right now to see how far that is from Knoxville.
It's quite a hike.
Yeah,
you got some good food in Knoxville.
Oh yeah, especially if you like pimento cheese. That's kind of the local addition, bacon jam, things like that. But yeah, there's a little soul food place called Jackie's Dream, which is great. So if you're ever down here, but so talk about like that. To me, that was it a nightmare getting the approval to
that was the worst part
and all that stuff. Yeah,
working with the state and the Department of Health to get that squared away, and they hated that it was in like this old historical farm stand. They hated that
because it's dirty and not up to code and was built before.
Well, I mean the whole place it's pretty neat. So
not dirty now, it's dirty when you
right. So the commercial kitchen part is fully insulated, so no like little critters can get in there. It's all good. Outside, like the place where people would kick it and hang, is like all open space. So it's basically like a slab of concrete, and it's all barn doors on 50% of the building. So it's all open concept. I got like a hammock, hung up in the door, so you can. I'll fresh squeeze lemonade with some, beautiful like lavender simple syrup or whatever, blueberry lemonade, post up, get the Wi-Fi. So I really try and like put my personality in it, man. It's like half. I got Ron Paul books laying around. I got like I play the music that I want to hear there, and people seem to really like it, dude. Yeah, like I said, a small menu. I just started like a CBD line, Wheelies Pharmacy, that keeps me going all through the year. So I do that online and through the website. But
I see you've got one of my favorite food items, the Elvis. I have an Elvis Presley Tennessee license plate, but the banana, peanut butter, bacon, and honey a waffle, not a sandwich, a waffle.
Yeah, everything.
Elvis's mom would make him those sandwiches, but
yep, you got it.
That sounds great. So
we do bacon on everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just go into economics just for 1 second.
Sure.
Like, we know from Mises that, it's funny when you hear people talk about prices, they're like, well, because this costs that much, that means they have to charge this much. But prices are really determined, cost of production is a thing that you have to factor in, but it's really what people are willing to pay for things. So what's this may be a boring, dumb question, but like, how do you make that calculation in your head to charge $9 for the Elvis waffle?
Do you think that, first of all, do you think that's a good price? Would you be willing to pay that?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
That's pretty decent, right?
Yeah, unless the waffle's like this big. I mean, which I'm sure
Nah,
it's
man,
not.
full on Belgian, and it's made to order every time you order one.
Right. Yeah, that's a bargain at $9. Like, but
Right.
so to me, again, to get into Mises a little bit, like I would probably pay $15 or $20 for that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure there's something on the menu that I just don't care for. So, like the Buddha bowl, no. Like,
Yeah, I got
that's
one
great.
vegan item. Yeah, sure, because
But
they need it. The vegans need it.
my wife's not a vegan. She's a late onset type 1 diabetic, so she would probably get that. But to me, it's worth nothing if I'm
Right.
if I'm by myself. So, how do you just kind of wing it, see what happens? Do you crunch numbers and then modify based on what consumers actually do? How often, and especially now with inflation, how often do you have to raise prices?
So yeah, I might have to raise price. This was a sticky year. Last year was too, man. It was like
Well,
chicken prices like more than doubled just for like white meat chicken. There was a 4-month period maybe, and I'm still closed right now. I have to check, but 4 months where I couldn't get like plastic cups and straws and things like that because of the lines. You know, the factories were full, and then the boats stopped moving, and then there wasn't any more.
I've seen here in Knoxville, no lie, just like it's like lobster or something, chicken wings market price. I've seen that
Right.
more than one person.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
So when I started the business, I thought like my basic overview was like, okay, I think, and I've watched some projections of guys, the guy who started Shake Shack and things like this, like what are people looking for? Like, what do they want? What's the appetite right now? And what's popping up in my neighborhood? Oh, there's a Panera. Like we didn't have that kind of like, boom, just bump up from like McDonald's until recently. So people that have money are probably projecting on what this place is going to look like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years. What do they want? So I was thinking, first of all, it's just me. I don't have any employees. So I'm the guy who just does everything at this place.
Really?
Yeah. So I was thinking.
You don't even have any illegals but in the back?
Bro. No, I've had guys cook with me before, but to be honest with you, man, that's where most of the money went, was labor. And I was think that I was just scared to like prepare somebody. That's another thing. I used to wait tables for years. This was one of my first libertarian. I should have said this before. This is one of my first libertarian lessons was like, oh, as a waiter, I'll make more money than my peers if I do a better job than them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Not, this isn't a $10 an hour job. You could make $50 an hour doing this job if you're fucking awesome. If you can smile, like give people a little bit of an experience with their food or something like that. Yep. So that was very appealing, But yeah, when I moved in and I was like thinking about moving from just coffee on a cart and like wrapped snacks and wanting to do food, I was thinking, okay, you could go and you could get fast food for $5 and you could wait 5 minutes, or you could go to like Fridays or like, I don't know, Applebee's or something and wait 20 minutes and pay $20. But I think people kind of want something in between where they spend about $10. They'll come up to like get it fairly quickly, but maybe not as rushed as fast food. Yep. Like I don't have a microwave at my place, so I can't get you something microwave fast, but it will be better. And if you're somebody who cares about quality of food and stuff like that, you'll probably be willing to pay for it. So yeah, that was my goal, was to just have like a good home cooked kind of rustic. I got beach vibes in there, country vibes. So like the chicken and waffles was definitely on, like I wanted to do that. And when I started doing that, people ordered more of that than sandwiches, and I would make more money on waffles. Like I've gotten to the point where I think I might change the name to Wheelie's Waffles, because I feel like I might draw more people off the road, and that's what makes the most money. And that's what people come in for. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. That was my goal. I'm sticking to it. I might have to raise some prices next year. But like when I write, my price of coffee has come down since I've started my business. Like when it was just coffee and I had to get that money for that roast or whatever, I couldn't offset it with anything else. Mm-hmm. So that's changed. Like, okay, the waffles are pulling in enough to where I can make this. When I moved in the first week, this guy came in and he looked at my store, and he's kind of like a, like salt of the earth type of guy. And like I said, my area isn't exactly like a cool hipster college town. It's like, a little bit depressed. And he looked around and he goes, kind of exotic for the 19720, isn't it? Like, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe post up, grab a lemonade, like enjoy yourself.
Yeah. What did he buy? Did he get anything?
I think, yeah, like he bought a coffee, and I think it might have been $2.50 or $3, and he didn't love that because Wawa has it for $1. It's like, why would I come here? It's like, well,
Right.
I'm not a gas station, and I don't serve 20,000 cups of coffee a day, and Wawa doesn't serve you an organic, locally sourced, beautiful cup of coffee made for just you. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, I'm not it's not your grandmama's farm stand. I tried that in the beginning, kind of just appease everybody and live up to the history, and I've kind of just like made it my thing. It's like my playhouse. I had Joe Jorgensen come in 2020 and speak. This has become like a Mises Caucus place where the guys come and we shoot the shit on Sundays and brunch, and Bitcoiners come in and talk about their place. So I love when I can find that like synergy between the activism and the business and just like live it. It's the best.
So yeah, Wheelie's Waffle Barn, that might work.
Waffle
Wheelie's
Barn.
Waffles,
Now you're crushing it. I like it.
Yeah, it's got the ring to it. Because it gets a little bit of the rustic artisanal thing in there, the barn thing. So wow, that's great. Yeah, my wife, once I tell her about this place, she's definitely going to want to go. You're in Newcastle, Delaware?
Yes.
Okay. So
not far from Mike Heiss.
Right. So that I was looking at the map. It's right south of Philly. So you probably get all the Philly TV stations and all that stuff, right?
Yes. And we got Scott Horton coming up in late March for our convention, if you felt like making a trip.
Oh, nice. Man, my wife will kill me. I'm going to the Pennsylvania convention, then I'm going to the Tennessee convention, which is 2 or 3 hours away and 2 nights in a hotel. So I'm not going to press my luck, but
two's good.
Yeah, but no, we'll try to take a vacation up that way or something in the next couple of years. And she's originally from New York City, and we were gonna maybe try to go see a basketball game or something, but we're not allowed right now. So so who knows if she'll ever get to visit her Staten Island again. But well, we got to say goodbye. I've taken up too much of your time, but I always like to ask people, especially people with interesting taste. I don't know how much, I know some of our musical tastes overlap, but what are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you reading that people might like? And all of this stuff about the wheelies and all the stuff we talked about, I'll be up on decentralizedrevolution.com/71, just the number 71. So let's give us some recommendations I can put up there too.
Nice. Yeah. I'm reading The New Right by Michael Malice right now, and also Universal Basic Income, For and Against by Anthony Samaroff. That guy's awesome. I would check both of those out. Let's see. What else? As far as like recommendations?
Yeah, like I since you do the music for the show, maybe some of that. I've heard you did a version of not too many people may know this, but like the first album I ever bought was Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever. And so You're So Bad off of that album, which is not kind of an obscure track, but you did that.
Yeah.
So like,
you heard that?
Yeah. I don't know what, I think it was maybe when I was searching, when I was looking around for music for the show, and somebody said, hey, Dave Casey does music. And so I maybe found it at that point. So yeah. So what are you listening to? What are you still making music? Things like that.
I'm not making so much music anymore these days. I'm kind of pivoting, and I'm listening to less music because I'm listening to so much more podcasting, which is probably a phase, but I need it. I didn't know how much I needed it. But as far as musical recommendations, I would recommend, especially in this climate, listen to more reggae. Get that going. Listen to some Groundation, some just good old Bob Marley. Even throw on some. I hate to be so nostalgic, but yeah, throw on some oldies. Throw on Marvin Gaye. Throw on Bill Withers. Throw on stuff that where they sing about love and they sing about unity, and not in a cheesy way. Songs used to just be about that. That was cool.
I think maybe I'll put that. I've been rotating albums up there lately, and I've got the vinyl of What's Going On. That to me, that's a great libertarian album, and Inner City Blues off that might be my favorite libertarian song. It's got everything.
Yeah.
It's got inflation, war, police brutality, all that stuff.
Topics for popular songs. That's something to be aware. I mean, that's crazy that's completely missing, completely gone. We have to go back to get it, man. Yeah, people talking about war and peace in popular songs. That's special.
Yep.
That's what I would recommend. Get some of that in your life.
But yeah, so we'll see you down the line, and hopefully you'll be credentialed, and we'll get this ball past the goal line in Reno. And I just appreciate everything you've done. I'll have links to your podcast, Dave versus Goliath. And yeah, it's finally it's good to have an extended conversation with you for the first time. So
you too, man. Keep up the great work with this show, and I really appreciate it, man. Good talking with you.
And there you have it. I'd like to thank Dave Casey for his time and wisdom, and all of our Mises Caucus crew in Delaware who have been, really trying to straighten things out there. I hope that things will get resolved in a fashion that complies with the rules and common sense, and it looks like it probably will. I'll have links to some of Dave's work, his podcast, Dave versus Goliath, and other stuff up, as well as how you can support the Mises Caucus over at the show notes page, decentralizedrevolution.com/71. That's the number 71. Thanks to Dave versus Goliath. That's Dave. He's got a podcast. He also does music. Thanks to him for all the music you hear on Decentralized Revolution. And thanks to everyone who subscribes to our email list at takehumanaction.com, gives to Mises PAC, and everyone who shares, rates, reviews, and subscribes to Decentralized Revolution. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.